Correct. Yeah.
All right. I'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the reciting of our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Vice President Castro, do our recognition resolution.
Thank you. Whereas the Raggetts family, in loving memory of Karen and Thomas Raggetts, have generously supported the community of Madison and Madison Metropolitan School District students and the community throughout their lives as parents, educators, and volunteers. Whereas the Raggetts family has donated up to $1.5 million in support of the West High School pool to augment the funds available through the 2020 facilities referendum. Whereas the donation provided by the Raggetts family will allow the pool to be of greater use to the community's students, educators, athletes, coaches, and community members. Whereas this gift will have a profound and lasting impact on the Madison community. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Madison Metropolitan School District Board of Education honors and thanks the Raggetts family for their inspiring leadership, contributions, and true generosity to the Madison Metropolitan School District, MMSD. Be it further resolved that this statement be permanently imprinted in the Board of Education minutes for the regular meeting of October 25, 2021.
Thank you, Board Vice President Castro. We're going to move on to public comment. There was one.
I know that Melinda is here too, and Mr. Raggetts is here, so I just wanted to recognize their presence here at the moment for that, and then we will come back to the West Pool naming item at the end of the agenda.
Oh, thank you so much for highlighting that, Melinda, and the Raggetts family is here. Thank you all for joining us. Would you like to speak to the gift before we move on?
Well, I'd just like to say, first off, introduce myself. So I'm Eric Raggetts. I was a West High graduate of 1991. My whole family went through West High School, both my brothers and my father at the school, and the district has meant a huge amount to us, both in terms of our education and my mother in particular is work in the school district. So we are honored to make the gift and just really grateful for all the work that is done by all of you, particularly in these difficult times of COVID and all the work that gets done. So thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting our swimmers. Melinda, would you like to speak?
Just gratitude to the Board of Education, to the West High staff and alumni who've been working on this campaign, the support of the foundation board, and most especially, of course, the Raggetts family for their profound impact, not only on the West Pool, but Tom Sr., Eric's father, was one of our founders. So 20 years into our existence, we're so proud and humbled to be a part of this family's legacy to this community. So just thank you to all concerned. And Val Chesnick, I think she may be on later, but Val was a former foundation staff person and West alumna who was the person who made the initial contact with Eric. So I want to recognize her role in this as well. So thanks, everyone.
Oh, thank you all so much for joining us this evening and for supporting our schools. And thank you so much for your generous gift. Moving forward, we're going to jump to public comment. There was one written statement submitted for this meeting opposed to agenda item 10.6, rewarding the bids on mechanicals for the Southside Elementary and Madison Memorial High School to a company that was not local, or that is not local. Public appearances, we have Barb.
We have 5.
We have 5 public appearances, starting with
First one is Scott Bartz. Let him in now. Hi, Mr. Bartz, whenever you're ready, you can begin your statement, sir.
Okay, I'm just calling in to, I'm Scott Bartz, I'm with the Sheet Metal Workers, Local 18. I'm speaking on behalf of all of my members that live in the Madison tax district. We would like you to pull Memorial High School and Southside Elementary School from consideration tonight until more information is gained. One of our local contractors that pays taxes, Madison Metropolitan School District, didn't even get an interview. And we haven't been able to find out why that even is. Our contractors do a lot of outreach into the schools, and our members do, and the unions do, trying to work with the Madison School District to give opportunities and apprenticeships, that type of thing. All of our members get paid equal pay for equal work. And the contractor that's been pre-selected here does not do a lot of those things that we're talking about. There is no equal pay, there's no contract that guarantees that. I think that's about all I got to say. I know there's more people speaking, and you're gonna hear the same thing over and over. I'm just respectfully asking that those two schools get pulled until we get more information on make sure these proposals are actually apples to apples.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jack Weitzel.
Jack Weitzel, we're ready to hear from you. Or is Jack on?
He's working on it.
Hi, Jack.
Hey, are you ready for me?
We are so ready for you.
Awesome. Hey everyone, my name is Jack Weitzel. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the executive director for the Building Trades Council here in Madison. I represent over 4,000 union construction workers. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the approval of the next round of bids in the school referendum that's on your agenda tonight. I'm asking that you table 2 of the schools for later approval at your next meeting, the Southside Elementary School and Memorial High School. We believe that they don't follow Policy 5000, which is very important language for our working folks in this community. We've reached out to the administration asking for the bids and scope of the projects, but we're not given the information to ensure that the policy was upheld. The policy states that if a local union contractor was within 5% of the lowest bid, they would get a second chance to match the bid. On top of this, the district also made up scorecards to score each contractor on various aspects of the work they'll be providing. For example, an interview was worth 10 points of the total score, and some of our union contractors didn't even get an interview when there were only 3 contractors in the mix. Our union contractors only missed the boat by 3 or 4 points, so we're also wondering if the school board even knew about these scorecards. We're also asking that before this board approves these bids, that you request the same information that we have and have time to look everything over to make a fully informed decision. We're also fully aware that this year alone, we're on to the 3rd building and grounds director, and we just want to make sure that there is full transparency in the process after it's been handed down 3 different times. Lastly, I want to talk to you about Chavez Elementary School. A non-union contractor was hired for this job, and you ended up having to rip it all out due to mold, which cost the district over $1 million and about 70 workers' comp claims, all because that non-union contractor didn't know what they were doing. The reason Policy 5000 exists is because we do. We have over 80% of all construction apprentices in the state of Wisconsin. Our apprenticeship program, in some cases, are 3 times the amount of training hours compared to the non-union apprenticeships. And a recent study showed that our union apprenticeship program is the equivalent to a bachelor's degree, which is 100% paid for by the unions. The tuition cost for a non-union apprenticeship becomes a big barrier for women and minorities trying to enter this career path. I know this board is also talking about wages and being an equitable district. So we make 40% more than the non-union, which includes employee paid health insurance and pension. A huge priority for us is helping women and minorities get into the union trades. I'm a 26-year-old queer woman who has one of the biggest seats at the table in our union construction trades, and I'm a direct product of our union values and what I believe you to all value as well. So if these issues are important to you, I just ask that you please consider tabling these two schools for further discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jack.
Our next speaker is KB Amador.
KB Amador, we are ready for you.
Unmute. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm here representing the local 601 Steam Fitters Union. As a Madison resident and as a family member of current and retired Madison public school employees, I would like you all to consider hiring a union contractor over the non-union North American Mechanical Inc., otherwise known as NAMI. The reason why is simple. It's opportunity and education. Speaking from experience, I'm a female, Hispanic, out 5th year apprentice here at Local 601. I went to weld school at Madison College, where quite a few of our other apprentices have attended. Before joining the union, I reached out to several non-union contractors, and not once did I receive a call back. As you guys notice, I go by KB Amador now when I was applying for these jobs, and I do not know if that's the reason why. I went by Kimberly. I do not know, like I said, if that was the reason why that I wasn't getting any callbacks, but I joined my local union and was working 2 weeks later. It's important to note this because Local 601 wants to diversify their workforce, which in turn benefits the Madison community. Local 601 is here for and built from the people of Madison and Dane County. Local 601 tries to engage the community, and in November, I'll be attending a career fair on Park Street to encourage the youth and young adults to join a union. They do this because they want to give the community a chance to make a living wage and have affordable health care. Local 601 does this by giving every steam fitter apprentice the opportunity and education to become more than a basic equipment installer. This 5-year apprenticeship is designed to turn out the best steam fitters in the industry. Steam fitters who will each be able to tell when an installation is incorrect. Steam fitters who will produce the best mechanical systems because they know when correct installation is done. And they do this because they teach us related sciences, trigonometry for piping, basic electricity, hydronic systems, down to proper use and care of tools. I've taken over 1,000 hours of education for this job. What this means is that any journey worker on the job who will be skilled enough to know when something is not being done properly. Union workers are trained to think. We want to make sure the customer gets everything that they paid for, and we want to make sure it's properly installed the first time. So if someone asks us to do something that we know is not correct, we're not just going to do it. So if a general contractor tells us to do something right away because it needs to be done, we're going to stop and say, hey, that's not how it's supposed to be done. We're going to need some more time. And I think that's the difference between union and non-union. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Got 2 more.
Next speaker is Dave Branson.
Steve Branson, we're ready for you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Dave Branson, and I am the retired executive director of the Building and Construction Trades Council of South Central Wisconsin. When I was in the position of executive director, I was contacted by Madison Schools Foundation and asked if I would serve on the Vote Yes to Invest committee. I had reservations about doing that because I did come out of Western Wisconsin. I was in Western Wisconsin before I came here, and I worked with the building trades out there. There was a project with the building trades out in Western Wisconsin in Eau Claire where the building trades went in, and we spent many nights until 2 o'clock in the morning at both city council meetings and county board meetings to get a project approved. And, we were assured that we would get a fair shake at getting the work after that project was approved. But in the end, we did not get the work. They turned around, they gave the work to a non-union contractor, but then they turned around and they said, we have a school referendum coming up and we'd like you to help us get that passed. Well, that had left a sour taste in our mouth and we didn't do it. So I had some reservations about serving on the committee, but I was assured that they would be using policy 5000 and I was told that I should contact Chad Weezy. I contacted Chad Weezy and had a long talk with him. And I set up meetings with Chad Weezy and the building trades, and Findorf was in those meetings. And we were assured that this work was going to be awarded using policy 5000 on this. Nobody objected in the meeting at that time. Everybody knew in that meeting that we were going to be using policy 5000 to award these bids. And, we went ahead, the building trades, in a good faith effort because we felt that policy 5000 was going to be used and we felt that our contractors would have a fair shake. Our building trades all got on board with this project. Everybody contributed money to and worked hard to get the referendum approved. The building trades has had a long history of working with the Madison school districts. We've held our careers in construction event for like 19 years up until the time we had that pandemic. And Madison schools would come to that. The careers in construction was an interactive career fair where we would have the students do hands-on activities and work with the different members of the building trades to learn more about the trades. We have also worked with the Woods Committee and the Metal Committee with the Madison School District. We've gone to career fairs that they've had in the schools, and we've talked to the students. We've partnered with WRTP Big Step. WRTP Big Step has worked with the technical education, and we've brought the trades in there into the tech ed classes. And they've worked with the students and talked to the students about becoming union building trades members so that they could provide for their family, get union building trades jobs that are family supporting jobs and that pay pensions and health care. And we also, the building trades also has a collective bargaining agreement with the Madison School District. We have plumbers, steam fitters, electricians, painters, and carpenters that work right for the school district and maintain the schools. So, we've worked hard over the years to build a relationship with the schools. And, we would like you to make sure that policy 5000 is used when they're doing these projects. And one other thing I'd like to tell you is the benefit of hiring a union contractor, we always say, is they're going to use a local workforce. Even if a union contractor comes in from out of town, he calls the union and hires the local workforce to come out there and do it. These are the men and women that are in the community, working with the community, coaching soccer, Little League baseball, working with the Boy Scout troops. And, they're pillars of the community. They stay in the community and work with the community. And they also have kids that go to the Madison School District.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Annette Hollis.
Hello, thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight. I'm here to speak on reading. I am 150, 200% in with the science of reading and what you're doing at the elementary level to teach all children to read. I think we're 20 years behind, but let's start. I think where the problem becomes more difficult is at the middle and high school, and I'm here to speak about the inappropriate use of Achieve 3000 at the high school level. I do not think that tool is appropriate for high school students. I think regardless of reading level, children have very advanced intellectual levels, and that program is kind of insults their intelligence. On June 28th, the board approved spending $856,000 on expanding that to 10,000 students, including grades 9 and 10. That program is not successful at the middle school level, so I don't see it working at the high school level. I asked for data after that meeting, and I was told there was no district level data, so the decision to expand that was made without data. I did later receive one school-based data for one middle school, and that data has scant proof that most of the struggling readers appear to disappear by the end. So you have students like my daughter who has a very high Lexile because her mother's saying, put up and shut up, it's a pandemic, do what your teacher tells you. She does it. And her Lexile is going to pull up the average. The averages don't increase very much based on the data that I saw. And now we're going to apply it to the high school level. It is not an appropriate tool. The administrator who put that software at the board meeting on June 28th, I later saw appeared in a virtual infomercial for Achieve 3000 on July 22nd, where she used her title with the Madison School District and implied that that software has been successful in Madison. I'm not against using it in some context, but it has not been successful as far as I can see. I am opposed to using it at the high school level. And then that same administrator is scheduled to speak on November 9th again in an Achieve 3000 funded. I don't know what those relationships are, but I just have a question about how those decisions were made to use that at the high school level. And I would like to review whether that even is applicable to the high school students. I think we do those students an injustice, whether they read well or not. They are very smart kids. They are very highly involved. They have lived through a pandemic, George Floyd, a culture that is packed with news, and you're asking them to read artificial intelligence, watered down weekly reader articles and be engaged in that. So I don't see that it's working, and I think it's inappropriate and counterproductive at the high school level and possibly at the middle school level. I don't know what to do to bring those readers up, but I think it's a different issue at the middle and high school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes for the regular I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated September 27th, 2021.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Thelma, your advisory vote?
Aye.
News from around the district. We are gonna start with the gifted education proclamation from Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Thank you. October is recognized in Wisconsin as Gifted Education Month by Governor Tony Evers and State Superintendent Jill Underly. The proclamation from Governor Evers can be found linked in our agenda in the board president's announcements for tonight's meeting. In MMSD, we are striving to meet our responsibilities to provide gifted education under the larger umbrella of advanced learning instruction. Our focus on advanced learning aims to provide appropriate instruction for students beyond grade level expectations, while identifying and supporting the talent potential that exists in students from all backgrounds and in every school in our district. In addition to academic subjects, advanced learning also recognizes talent and potential in the arts, leadership, and creativity. These changes provide a proactive approach to addressing historical disparities by race and income that exist in traditional gifted education. We know that talent potential is not determined by zip code. In MMSD, we want to ensure that advanced instruction is available in all schools across the district for students who need additional challenges to meet their learning needs.
Thank you, Board Member Gomez Schmidt. All of us in the MMSD community continue to be energized by celebrating our colleagues' accomplishments. This year, the 2021 Wisconsin Health and Physical Education Association Awards, also known as the WHPE Awards, were awarded to 2 exemplary MMSD staff members. Ian Lacasse, health teacher and department chair at West High School, was awarded the WHPE Wisconsin's Health Teacher of the Year Award, and Ashley Riley, MMSD Physical Education Health and Wellness Coordinator, was awarded the WHPE Wisconsin Health and Physical Education Coordinator of the Year Award. And last but not least, Capitol High, Marianne Matt received the 2021 Wisconsin School Counselor of the Year Award and is one of the 5 finalists for the American School Counselor Association Counselor of the Year National Award. The board congratulates and celebrates all 3 award recipients and also recognizes the daily accomplishments and endeavors of all staff working in this district. Universal Mental Health Day, October 22nd, 2021. I would like to acknowledge that for the first time this past Friday, we had a Universal Mental Health Day that allowed for our entire faculty and staff to celebrate and recognize the need for well-being and mental health as a focus of the district. It's a first step in the right direction, and hopefully we will continue to work together to promote the well-being of our students, faculty, and staff. And we will now hear from the superintendent. So Dr. Jenkins, your announcements. Dr. Jenkins, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to echo board chair in terms of the Universal Wellness and Health Day for all of our staff. Just want to say thank you so much to all of our staff for actually taking time out for yourselves to take care of yourselves, because we know that's very important as you're coming back and meeting the needs of our students. Had an opportunity this past weekend to be with our very own board, student representative, Nama Pendy, and also Gordon Allen. They participated in a think tank national convening. And I want to say I was so proud of our students, how well they represented us and the voices of students as they stood toe to toe with national scholars and actually talked about how do we move forward and what are some of the barriers in terms of some of the disparities and opportunities that we see within our school systems, not only here in Madison, but throughout the nation. Very proud of them. Also want to lift the voices of the students that I had an opportunity to meet with over the last 2 weeks at East High School, as they had a very challenging situation that the students took and became very much active in letting their voices be heard around us in our community and just across the nation, and how we deal with sexual violence issues. Those students stood in and had some very tough conversations with adults in the room. And I really am proud of them. And I ask that the other students that we have throughout the district continue to lift their voices, as I've heard from the students at Memorial, and they leaned forward as we wanted to have our homecoming activities and told me that they could do it in a very safe way. And I want to thank those students and the other students at the other schools as well, as we put forth the mitigation strategies and were able to have a safe homecoming. So we're very excited, looking forward to this budget book discussion that's going to come up tonight. And I have to tell you, Ross McPherson has done the job once you see it, and we're going to talk about some of our priorities a little bit later. But thank you to all of you. And the last word, I would say thank you to the individuals who came out and spoke up about item tonight, 10.16 on our agenda. As you will see, it'll come up later. We have heard from you, and I am recommending, and we will look at pulling that item for us to have more information. I have been talking to the individuals behind the scene, but thank you. We appreciate when our community members feel safe that they can come in this space and share their thoughts. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to reports on items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on October 4th, 2021. Board Member Pearson.
Thank you. So during our instructional work group meeting, we had some technical difficulties. So therefore, I just wanted to just note that if someone is reviewing the meeting, that there are 2 videos to watch. And it should link you to, if you're on whichever video, it should link you to the other video. At our meeting, we had update presentations on early literacy and beyond, special education and student services, and restraint and seclusion. These presentations sparked robust conversations. And then in addition to that, we discussed the policy 4222, which is reporting child abuse or neglect, which we will be voting on tonight. In addition to policy 4222, we got a policy update and had discussions on policy 3350, which are field trips. And we are still working on that. We will not be voting on that. For November 1st, 2021 instructional work group meeting, our proposed agenda items are as follows. Continuing with the wellness check, update on academic plans, so English language learners, advanced learning, and Black excellence, and recommendations from superintendent's academic advisory committee, and then state of the arts, which I'm really excited about, and equity audit updates. Back to you, Chairman Holder.
I very much look forward to that meeting. Thank you so much, Board Member Pearson. Report on items that proceeded through the operation work group held on October 11th, 2021. Board Member Carusi.
Thank you. The operations work group met October 11th. We discussed changes to our policies on age of students and security cameras. We will vote on updated versions of these policies tonight, as well as policies discussed in September. Those include amending the BEP to place a moratorium on elementary suspensions, the budget transfer policy, and our locker room policy. And we discussed our final vote on the 2021-22 budget and tax levy also tonight. I want to provide or voice deep gratitude and thanks to Ross and his staff for their work. They've transformed the board and administration's ideas and priorities into a budget that upholds the values in our strategic framework. The state handed us an extremely challenging biennial budget, and the MMSD budget we are voting on tonight would have no operating increases without the operating referendum that voters approved last fall. We are grateful for this investment by our community in our public schools. To help control the impact of this budget on property taxes, we have focused available funds and we are not taxing to the max. This budget is $2.57 million under our total revenue limit authority and holds our tax levy increase to just under 2%. During the course of the referendum, we heard from our community that citizens want us to invest in equity and our staff, and we've put together a budget that reflects the feedback. The budget includes a full base wage increase of 1.23% and fully funded step and lane increases for employees. It maintains stability and health insurance coverage with GHC and Dean as providers and no increases in employee health insurance premiums. It also includes investments in excellence and equity designed to close opportunity gaps. Highlights of these equity investments include full day 4K at 8 high needs elementary schools with the greatest percentage of low income students, curriculum updates, professional development in evidence-based reading instruction, daily world language instruction for 7th and 8th graders in all our middle schools, restorative justice as part of a holistic approach to safety in our high schools, competitive wages for MSCR seasonal workers, free menstrual products for students, and investment in student social and emotional learning, including more middle and high school counselors and expanded mental health supports at the elementary level. This budget includes nearly $19 million in federal COVID relief funding, including instruction and continued mitigation strategies to keep everyone safe and healthy. Finally, this budget reflects growing enrollment in independent charter and private voucher schools, which impacts our ability to serve students in MMSD schools. This year, over $6 million of our budget will go directly to these choice schools without an equivalent increase in per pupil revenue. I'm now going to hand this over to Ross to provide details about the revenue side of the budget.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chris. This fall budget is aligned with the voices of our community. The community has told us they want the referendum funds to support the needs of our students and facilities. As Chris mentioned, we have a deep focus on early literacy and will be providing the district's first ever full day 4K program while investing in high quality, diverse staff and social, emotional, and mental health supports for students. Last year was very challenging for all K-12 districts across the state and in the country. We entered our budget planning in the spring, understanding that our enrollment had shifted and we needed to adapt our level of services across the board to continue providing instruction to all of our students. It is true that the November referendum is our only stable, reliable, recurring source of revenue for this year. This budget relies on reevaluating prior year budgets and repurposing existing funds to new uses. It also invests operating referendum funds and federal ESSER funds towards student learning and social emotional needs. Additionally, the budget we're discussing tonight is balanced and keeps the fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer by holding our tax increase to under 2%. The fall budget for operating funds, Funds 10 and 27, for the 21-22 school year is $479 million net of interfund transfers. When including our other budgetary funds, including our debt service, food service, and community service funds, the district's fall budget is $537 million net of interfund transfers, a 1.5% increase from the 2021 fall budget. The fall budget document includes the average impact to the taxpayer in the appendix. Due to some adjustments and state valuations for equalized value, our district total valuation has fallen 0.43%, despite the housing market increasing at an average rate of 6.3% per the city of Madison. The impact on our mill rate is an increase of 27 cents to $11.40. The average homeowner will see an estimated increase of $312 on their tax bill. While we have no control over our equalized valuation, we continue to work with the City of Madison and the Department of Revenue to identify the cause of this trend in future budget years. And I'll hand it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Ross. The next operations work group meeting is scheduled for November 8th, and our agenda items include an update on food service, class size, and enrollment. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Carusi. I move that the Board of Education approve the revisions to Board Policy 4222, reporting child abuse or neglect, as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting dated October 25th, 2021.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Any discussion? Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Yes, there was just one thing that I was going to request that Sherry add. In all of these policy revisions that we're doing, we are adding references to Wisconsin state statutes and our own procedures and other policies that reference these. And there was one that I think we meant to add that got missed here, and it's the procedures, the MMSD. Sherry, maybe you can get the title.
Actually, I had to pull it to actually come up with the title. It's the Child Abuse and Neglect Guidance, reporting phone numbers and procedures. And you are correct. I forgot to add that to our reference point. So I'll add that.
Jerry, do we need to amend in order for you to add it, or?
Yes.
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 So, Board Member Gomez Schmidt, do you want to amend the language to add that moving forward?
Yes, give me 1 second.
And Chris, if you're just looking for the actual title of it before you make the motion so you can state it, you can just reference what I said and I can read it again.
Okay, is it the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Guidance? Is that what the document is called?
It's Child Abuse and Neglect Guidance, reporting phone numbers and procedures.
Okay. I would like to make an amendment that we add to policy 4222 in the reference section, reference to the child abuse and neglect.
One more time, Sherry.
Sherry, can you help me one more time?
Child Abuse and Neglect Guidance, reporting phone numbers and procedures.
Reporting guidance, phone numbers and procedures.
Second.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Any discussion? Emily, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
All right. I
Do we
move that
vote on the amendment or the motion?
we voted on the amendment, and because the amendment passed, it changes the motion.
I think you have to read the motion. don't you?
So do I need to read the motion again with the amendment and we vote again?
Can be done together. And I think that was her intention.
So that was my
Vote
intention.
separately on the amendment and then go back and vote on the original motion as amended if you want to vote twice. Okay.
Or
Do
you
you
can
need to
have,
vote twice?
or you can just have the friend, I think the friendly amendment. As
Okay.
long as Ali accepts it.
Yeah, you're right. Good idea. You're right.
So the friendly amendment is what Chris offered and you accepted it. And so by accepting that friendly amendment to your,
You don't need to vote.
you don't need to vote as, yeah, you don't need to vote twice.
Are folks comfortable with that if we move forward? Would folks like to vote on the original motion?
I think it's a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I think it's a
Friendly
friendly
amendment,
amendment.
I'm fine.
All right, I move that the Board of Education revise policy 6061 budget transfers as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting dated October 25th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Castro. Any discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? All right, motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education revise board policy 6702 surveillance cameras, including title change to security cameras as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting dated October 25th, 2021.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Any discussion? Board Member Vandermillen?
Thank you, and thank you for amending this. There's no reason to ever have hidden cameras in our schools, and we finally have it codified, so there will not be. And it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermill. I appreciate it as well. Any other conversation or discussion? Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Yes, and I'm just trying to pull up on board docs here, the proposed final. There had been a proposal to add the last paragraph. This policy specifically forbids the placement of hidden cameras. And then there was some additional language that had been added around staff performance, but I don't see it in the final draft.
I can read it to you. I think I know what you're referencing. It's in the last sentence in the third paragraph. It says, notwithstanding the MMSD's ability to place security cameras in public places, the district will not use surveillance cameras to appraise staff performance.
Yes, that was something that I'm also going to propose a friendly amendment. I think one of the questions around that was the word surveillance cameras was in there. And also, I think we need to clarify a little bit more around the staff performance, because I think the suggestion for that was specifically around educator effectiveness and within that framework. So I'd like to propose that we change that to the district will not use security cameras to evaluate staff within the educator effectiveness framework.
Security or surveillance?
Security. Because I think we changed all of the language in this policy to be security cameras. And I don't think there are any surveillance camera references in this policy.
That is correct.
Board Member Carusi.
Thank you. So I was the one who recommended the sentence. I think I'm comfortable with the use of security cameras instead of surveillance cameras because we've pretty much banned the use of any surveillance cameras through this policy. However, I disagree with raising staff performance to educator effectiveness. Educator effectiveness is one part of staff performance review. We also are evaluating staff based on their cultural competency now, for example. And I don't think we should be using security cameras, which are not a good means of capturing a record of somebody's performance to evaluate staff performance at all. It is possible that we would need to use a security camera to investigate staff misconduct, and I don't think this policy prohibits that. So I would argue to leave staff performance in place and not change it to educator effectiveness, because I think it's too narrow.
So I just want to say that Board Member Gomez Schmidt does not have a second for the amendment. Board Member Morelli? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw your hand up, Ananda. Apologies. Any other discussion? Do you accept that as a friendly amendment? I can't accept an amendment as a second, and I'm not seconding the amendment. If the amendment is not seconded, it dies on the floor. Yep. So I am gonna read the original motion. I'm sorry, Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
No, I just wanted to ask if, talking about the educator effectiveness, the cultural competency part is included in the educator effectiveness evaluation at this point. It's not just, isn't it?
Educator effectiveness is a program put up by the state and by DPI, and cultural competency is something that MMSD has added.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily assume that those two are the same thing.
Okay. So it made it too narrow in the way I was.
That it's part of performance overall.
It is part of performance overall. Yes, absolutely.
The performance might sound better, be better. So I still don't have a second for the amendment. I am gonna read the original motion. If we don't have further discussion of this motion, I'm gonna ask folks to vote. I move that the Board of Education revise Board Policy 6702 surveillance cameras, including a title change to security cameras as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular meeting dated October 25th, 2021. Second.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Any discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education revise policy 4013, age of students, as set forth in the document prepared for the regular board meeting, October 25th, 2021. Second.
Second, Chris Chrissy.
Any discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education revise Board Policy 6710 locker rooms as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting dated October 25th, 2021. Second.
Second.
Second, Gomez Schmidt. Any discussion? Board Member Carusi.
I think there is a typo in this policy that changes the meaning of it slightly, so I want to get some clarification on that. It's the first sentence under item number 2. It says, except as provided herein, no cameras, video records, wireless recordings, ... It goes on. I think it should say video recorders, not video records. Is that correct, Sherry?
Yes, it should be recordings. You are correct. I can make that change.
In that case, I would like to propose a friendly amendment to change that sentence under item number 2 in the policy to read video recorders.
Second. Any discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I move that the Board of Education revise policy 4502B behavior education plan as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular meeting dated October 25th, 2021.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any discussion? Board Member Carusi.
So I want to start by saying that I firmly believe that this change to the BEP is the right thing to do. And at the same time, I'm hearing concern at the school level that while this change is a good thing to do, and there's We're making it at a time when our schools are understaffed. At many schools, our social workers and psychologists are currently filling in for other staff vacancies, and they have less time to support students who may be facing trauma or who otherwise might need help. One of the many criticisms of the BEP when it was first introduced, that it was a really important change that was not backed by adequate resources. I think it's not enough to say that we will stop doing something. If we're truly centering this decision on students, we also must ensure that every child who needs support from a psychologist or a social worker or another professional gets that support. This change to the BEP goes into effect tomorrow. And I just want to ask if we are ready to support every child who is struggling with trauma or other challenges at this time.
Board Member Calusi, are you directing your question at the administration?
Yeah, this is just a question for the administration before we get.
Dr. Jenkins, would you like me to jump in?
Just a second. Yes, I would, Dr. Esser, in just a moment. But I want to say, first of all, thank you for raising that particular perspective of some of the staff members. But I've had conversation as early as this morning with some administrators just about where we are in this pandemic and how we're going to try to lean forward together, respecting the fact that we know that we have a dual pandemic going on, but we're trying to lean forward together and get to another space. That said, we don't see ourselves coming out of this pandemic anytime soon. And how do we continue to ensure that our students and staff, we're taking care of their social, emotional, mental health, well-being, but leaning forward together? Because also during these times, we want to make sure that we don't have a culture in place, climate in place, where those students who are also being harmed by this pandemic are continuing to experience a devastating response from us just because we have not made the necessary adjustments. And I think Dr. Esser can speak to it now in terms of some of the things that we're trying to do. We had shortages before the pandemic and we were adjusting. And I don't see the shortages, given the national situation right now, stopping tomorrow or next week. So if not now, then when will we start to appropriately create environments so that all of our students can feel safe, our staff can feel safe, and we can do what's in the best interest of all. So Dr. Esser, if you could follow up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Very well said. I appreciate your leadership. I want to also just help ground us in volume and scope. Right now, there are so few out of school suspensions at our elementary school level that I can't even report them. That means we are less than 7 out of school suspensions right now. So I want to connect us and remind us that we are talking about a very small number of suspensions that are occurring in the first place. I also just want to remind us that while, yes, we are facing staffing shortages, which are impacting our responsibilities as social workers and psychologists, as we work all hands on deck to ensure students can be safely served and can engage in deep academic and social emotional teaching and learning. The behavior education plan and support around behavior doesn't just rest on those two individuals. Behavior systems are built as a crux and a foundation of a school, deeply rooted in the work of a school-based leadership team and the overall work of developing a high-quality culture and climate where students feel safe and that they belong. So yes, we are facing this double pandemic, and as a result, we are facing the need to do our work differently and pitch in different ways. But we feel so strongly that our schools and our students our schools and our staff have already been doing this work, and that we have the communication systems, the professional development systems, the reciprocal feedback systems and support systems in place to make this work. And again, we're talking a very small number of kids.
Thank you so much for speaking to that, Dr. Esser. Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, sorry, I have to re-plug in my computer, so 1 second. Basically, I'm gonna argue on 2 different points. One, COVID. If we allow out of school suspensions, we are sending kids home where we can't track them necessarily. That means we can't track where they are, we can't track COVID exposure. That provides more work for contract tracers and puts more kids at risk. That's number one. That's the logical Come on. Now I'm gonna go what I normally do, which is the emotional one, and that's this. It's taken 31 years for the ADA to pass, and it's still not been carried out completely. I'm not willing to wait as many years as necessary before we decide that children with disabilities, children who are Black and brown, children who don't fit inside a box are able to get the accommodations they need so they fit into a general school building. There are going to be some teachers, there are going to be some staff who will never accept certain students. It doesn't matter what is done. They will never will. I'm sick of caving to the minority of teachers who won't. Instead, our schools are designed for everyone. That's what the law says. Everyone gets a free, appropriate public education. It's what we say in disability law, and everyone deserves this education. And our students need to feel safe. The best way to do that is we can't treat them in a way which they are treated as a criminal, where 48% are suspended. At one point, it was 64%. And that doesn't even take into account those with who are Black and brown and disabled. Very simply, time's now, or it's not going to happen. I see my time.
Thank you so much for speaking to the intersectionality of the issue, Board Member Vandermeulen. Board Member Castro.
Yeah, thank you. I am in support of this. As Dr. Esser pointed to, this is a one step of many to start to dismantle the school to prison pipeline and begin to end the disenfranchisement that our Black and brown students experience in our school systems. As we have our upcoming budget, build our budget for next year, the appropriate responses to trauma will certainly be a theme in those budget discussions. And from the existing research I've read, sending someone out of school is not the appropriate response to trauma. And so we will continue to invest in trauma-informed responses to meet the needs of our students.
Thank you, Board Member Castro. Further discussion? Gomez-Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to thank Bryn Martina, Sarah Knevy, and Dr. Leah Esser for the memo that you provided that was attached to this policy update. One of the things that I noticed out of this memo is that it says that to actualize this change, which we are striving for, and the elementary schools have been working on this for a long time. And so, like Dr. Esser, I appreciate you saying that this is a very small number of students per year that this will affect. But it says in here that to actualize this change, our schools need support. And I appreciate the survey that you did of principals and staff in our schools. Of the responses, the number one response was that adequate staffing with clearly defined roles was needed. And also in their support and communicating the message of how this is going to be implemented to families, and support with addressing the severe behaviors that may happen, just occasionally. And so what I'd like to know is how are we responding to those staff concerns as we move forward with this? And I guess that's a question for Bryn or for Dr. Esser.
Dr. Jenkins, I see your hand raised, so I want to defer to you first.
No, you can go ahead. I had it on another point.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So Chris, I think our approach to this, like everything we're doing, even our work in our schools, is multifaceted, right? We think about what we can provide to all staff and folks in buildings that will help meet their needs in order to understand this moratorium, what their options are, reminders of the universal practices and tools in their toolbox, all of those concrete and tangible supports and resources that we've provided throughout the years that we continue to lift up. So for example, using a train the trainer model to support our student and staff supports team to reinforce concepts that we have been talking about for the last several years around universal system supports and how we promote and manage behavior at school. From there, our schools still have in place robust systems of support where they can access additional support through their SSIT problem solving and intervention team. Our student and staff support team in central office is deeply connected back to those student and support teams and are available for support and consultation. So our social workers and psychologists know how to access the leaders in central office for problem solving and support. Additionally, our intensive support team is ready, prepared, and willing to support in situations where there are intense behaviors and more is needed. The great thing about Bryn's role is that Bryn serves in this sort of intermediary role where she gets information very fast from schools as well. So some of these supports that I talked about require time or just coordination, whereas Bryn has real-time information when very serious things are happening and is able to make those connections back to our department as a whole, and we can get in those spaces and get on the ground and support staff, schools, and principals in order to really address very serious things that might emerge.
And so I guess I'll just follow up again. So with that adequate staffing and clearly defined roles, have our each one of our schools have had the time to define those roles within the guidance and resources that they're being given, and they're ready to do that tomorrow?
Chris, I think this is where we do have to acknowledge the double pandemic that we're facing and the fact that role clarity and role alignment is not something that we're able to provide as consistently as we would like to in our elementary schools. But also recognizing if the time is not now, when is it? And whether we have to, it's really making that decision and balancing the urgency. It's really, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's balancing that urgency. Our school-based social workers just today are telling us we're ready. We can do this in their professional development. So while not the individuals that spoke can't necessarily speak for the entire group, what we are hearing across the group is that we're ready to take this on and that this isn't more than we can handle right now. But I would be remiss and I would be inauthentic by saying that role alignment is an area where with the pandemic, it is a challenge.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that, and I think I said it earlier, if not now, then when. Dr. King, in one of his quotes, talked about our tomorrow is today. We're in the midst of a pandemic. We realize that we're in the midst of a health pandemic that just came about, right, over the last 19 months. We've been in a social justice pandemic since the beginning of America's time. And it's time for us to address some of these issues. We don't have everything perfect, and I don't think everything is going to be perfect 2 years from now. But I think what Nikki was saying in terms of our students with disabilities, we have situations, we're working it out together. And I have to commend the many staff who are working it out. And I'm offering up those staff who have the best practices in place to share their knowledge with other staff. But we can't keep holding off. Our students are getting harmed every day that we push things back. In this particular part, in terms of the role alignment, we're pivoting. I think we can do better. We can give a little bit more of a forecast now to what we could 18, 19 months ago. But in terms of dealing with this issue and talking about a moratorium on suspensions, we are ready to move forward. We have been working collaboratively with everyone. There will never be 100% of people saying, yes, pull the trigger today to get it done. But as Dr. Esser has eloquently stated, we are at a space right now where we can move this forward. And I think it's necessary for us as a district to move it forward because we have some other things on the horizon that's coming too. And we don't know, we hope we can stay in school with all the mitigation strategies we put in place. But I would hate for us to go out again, be in virtual, and have not done everything we can to advance the amount of minutes that we have with personal contact with staff in our school. So the time is really tomorrow, as Dr. King said, is today. We can't keep doing this.
Board Member Castro, and then Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Go on.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, as we're looking to approve this budget, when I'm asking the questions about adequate staffing, I want to see this work and ready for this change to be made. But I want to know, as we start another budgeting process, how are we going to determine what that adequate staffing is and how we need to move forward? So I guess as we look to approve this, what evaluation pieces are in place that we're going to see this coming back to us to determine if we have what we need to make this work.
Board Member Castro?
Yeah, again, just want to emphasize the current literature and research on this issue that out-of-school suspension is not an effective tool to improve behavior. And so we know that. We're about to start a new budget cycle, and we're going to find out what it takes.
Board Member Morelli?
Thank you so much, President Modrow. I've been listening into this conversation. I really appreciate a lot of what my colleagues have shared so far, but I will say that if there is no other lesson that this pandemic has given us or provided an opportunity for us to engage in, is this attachment that we have to get it right, to get it perfect. We know that we had to let go a lot of that during the pandemic, which we still are on. And so I really appreciate Dr. Esser's pointing out to us the fact that we're not tricking our staff, and we're not tricking and lying to our community to say, we know what's going to happen. We know how to do this right. We're saying, we need our staff and our community and our students and our families to engage with us in this period of growth, in the spirit of high level of engagement, in the spirit of healing, and also the spirit of grieving what's no longer supportive of our district and our staff and our young people. And so I wanted to just remind ourselves to the characteristics of white supremacy, which includes perfection, perfectionism, which includes this false binary of right and wrong. And I just wanted to say this to you, when we engage in this, going to do this virtual enterprise and going, staying at home and working from home and learning from home, which many individuals in our community engaged in, we had a lot of unknowns, and we're still in the space of a lot of unknowns. So I just wanted to highlight that and appreciate this moment of growth that my colleagues and also this team is engaged in. Thank you so much, President Modrow, for this opportunity to speak on this.
Thank you, Board Member Morelli. Board Member Gomez-Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that I am definitely not looking for perfection in this that we're trying to implement. But I think when we have a survey that says that our staff, number one, is concerned with adequate staffing and clearly defined roles in order to implement this successfully, that we really do have to look at that. And so that is what my questions were centered on, to make sure that our staff are ready to do this. The professional development with the counselors, psychologists, social workers, PBS coaches happened today. And so I'm glad to hear that there was a consensus that our schools are ready to move forward on this. Just wanted to make sure that everybody else in the school is ready to move forward on this too. Thank you.
So I will chime in because I think we've had this conversation in a lot of ways for a long time. And the primary question I've asked when we've talked about suspension is, what are the benefits? What are the good results promoted by suspending and particularly disproportionately suspending Black children and children with disabilities and Black children with disabilities? And I've asked Bryn that question in front of most of this board over and over again over the years, and I have never gotten any answer. So if we have something that is not working for students, that is not promoting any positive outcomes in terms of behavior, and is in fact making things worse, not just for the students who are suspended, but for the students who observe the disproportionate suspension of their Black classmates and their classmates with disabilities and their Black classmates and brown classmates with disabilities. That it is harmful. So I think we have to stop engaging in a harmful practice. In 2016, every single student that we suspended from 4K was a Black boy. And that is addressing, we're talking about kids ages 4 to 10. We're not talking about the entire district, we're talking about our youngest learners. And I think that it is going to take a tremendous amount of work to do this. And so I really appreciate my fellow board members who are emphasizing supporting staffing and supporting the needs of our teachers to make sure this is successful. I think that needs to continue to be an area in which we focus on. But as far as the moratorium on suspension, I am in complete support of it. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it is important that we continue to listen to our educators as we move in this direction. And that's all I'll say. So if there's further discussion, I'd love to hear from y'all. Otherwise, I'm gonna bring us to a vote. Board Member Castro?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's interesting how concerns get elevated to individual board members. The primary concern that I heard was, why is this even a discussion? We aren't going big enough. I mean, we're talking about a key component of the school to prison pipeline, which goes on to affect people for the rest of their lives by disenfranchising them from an education. And so when we're talking about trying to improve healthy behavior in our schools, we have to go deeper than just kicking someone out, or even just the perception that for some reason Black boys have disposition of more unhealthy behavior in general. This is deep. Like, we got to go deep here. So, yeah.
Thank you, Board Member Castro. Board Member Morelli, and then Board Member Vandermeulen.
I'm in full support of our president and vice president. I would like to call to question to a vote.
Thank you so much for getting us to the vote. Board Member Morelli, Board Member Vandermeulen, I think you're the last person we're going to hear for.
I just want to elevate what Savan said, because it's an important voice in this conversation, because frankly, that's a voice I can't speak from and most of us can't speak from. And I would like to elevate it. Very simply, behavior is communication. And if we continue to punish communication, we will only strengthen the school to prison pipeline. There is no other way about it. Now imagine if someone's nonverbal. What are you going to see that behavior as? Are you going to see it as a threat? Or are you going to see that as someone to be helped? Unfortunately, stereotypes do play a role in this. I'm not discounting our staff who are working their butts off. And I understand, and I want to do absolutely everything possible. At the same point, I don't think any of us can afford to wait. But that's all I have on that.
All right, I'm going to read the motion again and ask someone to second. I move that the Board of Education revise policy 4502B, behavior education plan, as set forth in the documents prepared for the regular board meeting dated October 25th, 2021.
Second, Nikki Vandermeulen. Sorry.
Nama, your advisory vote? All those in favor, aye. Motion carries 7-0. All right. I move that the Board of Education approve and adopt the 2021-2022 budget as presented. The materials for the October 25th, 2021 regular board meeting in the following amount. Total revenue for all funds, net of interfunds transferred, $524,635,776 total expenditures for all funds, net of interfund transfer $537,995,501.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Second, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any discussion? Board Member Carusi and then Board Member Vandermeulen.
Thank you. So I actually have 4 questions. 2 are about staffing and 2 are about fund balance. I'll start with my staffing question. The budget we received on Thursday has a 7.7 FTE increase in non-union professionals from the June budget. Based on the notes in the staffing plan table, it looks like the increase is due to the reorganization of OMGE into the CNI, the Curriculum and Instruction Department. That's a pretty significant increase in non-union professionals. And can tell us about those new positions and how that is with the reorganization.
Certainly. So let me start by saying that, yes, I did flag that in the table for the staffing plan in the budget book on page 39, I believe you're looking at, unless you're looking at the summary on page 36. Probably 36 if you're referencing the non-union. You're correct. The main change in that area is due to the fact that we had a number of teacher leader positions identified in the OMGE department, or what was formerly the OMGE department, that moved over to the literacy team in CNI. And some of those changes did indeed result in a change in classification of staff to teacher leader to non-union professional. If you need, I don't have all my notes in front of me at this minute, but I can certainly outline what those changes were at a later date if you would like to see that.
That might be nice. Thank you.
Okay, certainly.
My second staffing question, I'm glad to see the increase in nurses and social workers in the budget. However, I am concerned to see that special education, early childhood, and PST staffing appears to have decreased by 7.3 FTE since we voted on the draft preliminary budget in June. Special education is an area where we are chronically understaffed. I was just wondering if you could tell us more about the decision to reduce the number of staff in this area.
Are you speaking to the table on page 39?
Yeah, I can double check.
Okay, so yeah, I anticipated that question as well. One of the issues with the teacher table is that the way our student services staffing plan is put together is we give the authority of building level staff or building level administrators, excuse me, to flex their teacher allocation with SEA allocation. And depending on the year and the number of identified IEPs in a building, a principal may elect to have more teachers or more SEAs depending on their building makeup. So while the teacher complement in special education on this page appears to be going down, I know that the special ed total FTE has not gone down at the same level. This is just reflective of the teacher change on this table alone.
It's a little confusing because the label for this line is special ed and cross-categorical, and I assume cross-categorical with CC teachers.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I guess my question then would be, if they're flexing, are they flexing with regular ed teachers or CC teachers?
CC teachers.
And then would that mean that that would shift into the top of the table, or would that shift, or would that flexing stay in the line?
It would shift to the ed assistant line, which again, if you go back to page 36, you'll notice the ed assistant line appears to be going down as well. That's not exactly the same impact, as that line contains SEAs, EAs, parent liaisons, nurse assistants, and the entire complement under the EA group.
I'm just saying that the line on page 39 in that budget table that says special ed, cross-categorical, and early childhood and PST, that line appears to have dropped by 7.3 FTE. And if I just assumed if they had shifted into CC teachers from SEAs, that it stayed on the same line there. So that's why I was confused.
Okay. Again, if you'd like to, we can look at the over under from the June budget. I have those all itemized if we need to go through them in more detail.
At the end of the day, I just want to ensure that we have adequate staffing for special education built into this budget.
Understood.
Yep. Then my questions about fund balance. The first one is about the additional fund balance that's in this budget over what we anticipated in June. I think we're about $18.8 million higher. Where are we at in regards to the 15% policy ceiling specified in the board policy 6071?
Correct. And I do apologize. I have a memo that I owe the board regarding year-end financials and fund balance that outlines a lot of this question, but I'll go through it for this discussion just so we're all on the same page. At year end this year, we did add approximately $20.5 million to our fund balance. However, we identified and predicted a lot of this excess in June and actually leading into June discussions and started to prepare our assigned fund balance discussion in advance of that eventuality. Last year, as we all knew and expected, there were a number of things we wanted to do and a number of things we couldn't do. We've had supply chain problems, we've had staffing and hiring problems, and last year we drastically underspent several areas of the budget as a result of those factors. Excuse me while I change to a different chart here. So for year end, June 30th, 2021, we did add approximately $2.5 million to the general fund. About three quarters of that excess is due to either unfilled positions or temporary positions that were unable to be spent due to a number of reasons, well, mostly due to school closings. So for example, we budget millions of dollars on substitute teachers last year, and we had almost no capacity to hire substitute teachers for many of the positions that we had last year. We attributed about $4 million to unfilled teaching positions throughout the year, just about $5 million in employee benefits. $2 million was directly attributable to substitute teachers we were unable to fill that year. And $2 million was attributed to custodians and EA vacancies and unused temporary time. In addition to that, there were a number of non-personnel savings throughout the district that I'll go through in brief here. We had a utility savings of approximately $700,000 due to one-time savings due to school closures and not needing to keep the set point for heat as high as we normally would. Transportation savings of approximately $3 million due to COVID-19 and bus routes not running as expected, and approximately $960,000 related to 4K provider payments that did not occur due to offsite provider closures and reduced student counts. That result in the year end puts our fund balance at year end last year at approximately 22%, which yes, is too high. So we've been working on a plan, and we did discuss this in June about addressing a lot of assigned fund balance needs due to things we either couldn't do last year or need to accomplish this year. That involved an additional $1 million in curricular materials. This is all listed at the bottom of page 156 in the budget book, by the way. School formula carryover for unutilized funding that the buildings had at their disposal for last year, but couldn't use because we didn't reopen until fourth quarter. Approximately $2.1 million for an HVAC project at Kennedy Elementary. Science curriculum that we were unable to get filled by the end of last year at approximately $966,000. Trucks and equipment back orders of approximately $450,000 that we were unable to fill due to computer chip shortages and unable to get them through the dealership in time. About $2.5 million in building services projects we did not get accomplished during last fiscal year. And in addition to school formula budgets in the fall planning of about $950,000 specifically for school principal use to address reopening and COVID mitigation needs that were unforeseen at the time of our reopening. There's a second item on the list you'll see here too that we're going to be discussing later this spring. I'm working with Natalie Rue, our comptroller, to put together, and PMA, our financial advisors, to put together an additional debt defeasance plan out of an assigned fund balance to get rid of the remainder of our WRS debt under Fund 38. So if all those things considered, we have about $18.9 million in identified assigned fund balance needs in the fund balance table on page 156. So for the year ending next year, June 30th, 2022, we are aiming for approximately a 17% fund balance, which yes, is still above board policy, but we are anticipating and hoping to get our number back down within board policy very soon.
Thank you for that detailed explanation, Ross. I really appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, is the current 22% inclusive or not including the assigned fund balance?
I'm sorry, Chris, I missed most of your comment. I couldn't hear your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. The 22% figure that you gave us earlier, does that not include assigned fund balance? Our policy says that assigned fund balance doesn't get included in that ceiling calculation, so.
You are correct. I am including everything in the Fund 10 fund balance. So if I were to just use the unassigned fund balance, that would be off of the $70 million figure, not the 156. I would need to quickly pivot and try and calculate that percentage on the fly here, but I can do that if we have a minute here.
Sure, I can ask something else while you work on
That's
that.
fine.
I was gonna ask, do you want me to move to Dr. Jenkins? Because Dr. Jenkins has had his hand up in response.
Sure. I do have one more question about fund balance though.
I'll come back to you. Dr. Jenkins, if you want to speak, then we'll come back to you, then we'll get the percentage from Ross.
Actually, I had Dr. Mufenter who wanted to speak when she was asking the question relative to the special ed flexibility that Ross explained at the building level and those FTEs. So Dr. Mufenter, if she could speak.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenkins. And thank you very much for the question about special education funding, special education staffing. And I just wanted the Board of Education to be aware that in student services and special education funding, we have a variety of funding sources, which I'm sure you're all aware, and one of them is flow-through funding. And we have flow-through funding available this year to support our schools that don't have adequate staffing. So since Third Friday Count, we have been adding staffing at multiple schools, both special education assistants as well as cross-categorical special education teachers. So I just wanted people to be aware that we have been working to respond to those needs. Myself, as well as the rest of the special education administrative team, has been going out to schools. Some of that subbing and some of it visits and meeting with principals, assistant principals, and our program support teachers. So we have added quite a few special education assistants and cross-categorical special education teachers to our schools using the flow-through funding that we have available in student services. So I just wanted people to be aware that we are working to respond to those needs.
Thank you so much for that. That helps a lot. I appreciate that.
Chris, do we want to see if Ross was that fast in terms of calculating the percentage?
I do. Chris, I may need to clarify this with our existing board policy. So I'm going to give you two figures. One is the percentage of the unassigned fund balance against our operating funds, 1027, which is what we would typically use for this measure. So the 70 million against the fall budget of 2021, which would have been $446,147,088, would put us at about 15.75% of the fall of fund balance for the fall budget. If I use just Fund 10 and do not include Fund 27, that would be about 19.4%, which would be just Fund 10 excluding Fund 27.
Thank you for that math on the fly, Ross. I appreciate it. The board policy, our board policy on fund balance states that should the unaudited year-end fund balance of the district grow above the maximum general fund balance of 15%, the board shall develop a plan and timelines to budget increases to properly restore the fund balance to the maximum. So this is something we need to work on. Clearly, we're over now, we're going to continue to be over, and I think this is something we need to take up during the course of this year. I also have a question. This is more just a statement, I think, about assigned fund balance. I just noticed in this budget that you had added the additional 9 million, I think it is, for WRS debt defeasance, which on one hand I think is a great thing to do. It's a good use of our fund balance. And on the other hand, I'm wondering if we need to put something on the agenda to revisit policy 6071, because I'm a bit confused about how, like, who has the authority to assign fund balance, and is this actually potentially going to turn into a situation where fund balance can get assigned without board input? Like, we haven't actually had an agendaed discussion about using fund balance for that debt defeasance, and yet it's in the budget, it's printed that we're going to do that, which concerns me a little bit. I feel like we might need to look at our processes for assigning fund balance and maybe like formalize it so the board has to have a conversation about how we assign fund balance before it gets voted on.
Understood. And yeah, you're correct. That was a discussion I had hoped to bring back, but I'm putting a little bit cart before the horse here on this discussion. But that is fair. We'll bring that to a future operations work group for further discussion.
Thank you. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen.
Yes, I'm very concerned on this budget. I'm voting for it. My concerns are as follows. One, our teachers need a lot of help. They are going through a lot of stress. And I've known quite a few who have quit. I worry about this greatly. Two, we have numerous special ed issues. One that was just covered on Channel 3000 today about not providing IUP services, which probably isn't going to help us any in making sure that services are met. I worry and on a lot of things. What I wish we could do, and I hope we could do, is to create a fund balance plan that helps us to, one, make sure our IEPs are not only translated into language they need to be, so that way everyone can understand it. Two, make sure they're done. And three, provide a stipend, especially those for bilingual educators and educators who are bilingual special ed educators as well. They have some of the hardest jobs and the hardest jobs to fill. Those are the ones that I'm really worried about. I'm also worried about our staff at both East and La Follette. I keep getting emails saying they're feeling overwhelmed. Money can't fix everything, and I understand that. But we're gonna have to build in wellness days, not just mental health days, but also a few more wellness days as well. Because staff are afraid. They're afraid to take them. They're afraid it will affect negatively, and we're losing them. So I'm voting for this budget, but I'm saying if we don't take care of our staff, if we don't make them the priority, if we don't make sure that things like cost of living and steps and lanes and things that they rely on are covered, we're not going to have a staff left. And then I want an anti-racist school. I want to be one of the most diverse, best school systems there is. But I can't get the best and the brightest. I can't get teachers of color if we're not willing to pay them what they're worth. And right now, that's not what we're doing. And so that's what I'm really concerned about. Thank you for allowing me to speak on that topic.
Board Member Vandermeulen, I greatly appreciate your remarks. I do want to just for the sake of kind of the factual reality of this budget, acknowledge that this budget includes steps and lanes.
Yes.
And this budget pays cost of living to the max that is legally allowable.
I meant for next year. I'm sorry, I misspoke and I apologize. I meant for
I
next
just think it's important to be clear that
Yes.
the budget we are passing tonight both includes steps and lanes and includes cost of living to the max allowable by law.
And I appreciate that. Let's hope we can continue that. And I know we've done a heck of a job. And frankly, the board is working better as a group than we've ever have. And I've been on 4 boards.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermeulen. Other discussion? Board Member Gomez Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you. President Muldrow, I just wanted to make a quick comment again, focusing on the staffing plan. In just reviewing that, I just wanted to acknowledge that when we were back in June, we were predicting that we were going to have to decrease our FTE by 30. And where we're landing in this budget, we're actually increasing the FTE or remaining stable. And so I just wanted to clarify with Ross, that's due to a stabilization using ESSER funds and being able to maintain our staffing, despite the pandemic and despite a loss of enrollment, just that we have been able to stabilize our staff in our schools. And as Board President Muldrow pointed out, provide both the steps and lanes and the maximum allowable cost of living adjustment for this year. So Ross, is that accurate with the staffing FTE?
That is accurate. So what you're seeing, a lot of the June to now changes involve plans that were in place in our June budget for a vote and discussion, materializing into positions that were conceived but not yet set up at the time of that discussion. So you're seeing a lot of the FTE coming into place for social work supports, nursing services. I've been working with Dr. Esser and Wendy to identify our lead COVID nurse, communicable disease nurse, MSCR nurse, to ensure that we have contact tracers. All those FTE are now materializing in the budget, whereas they were not in place in June, but the dollars were. So you are correct. A lot of what you're seeing is federal dollars creating some of these temporary, or at least hopefully not temporary, roles for stabilization for our staff.
Thank you for that clarification, and just want to say thank you overall for all the work that has gone into bringing us to this point where we are approving this budget. This is the first time I've been through an entire budget process with this board and with the MMSD administration. And I just want to say I truly appreciate how much work goes in to making this happen for our district. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. I further move that the Board of Education certify the 2021-2022 all funds tax levy in conjunction with the 2021-2022 budget in the total tax levy amount of $356,903,095, which consists of the following specific, I'm so sorry, y'all. Specific subcomponents. Fund 10, General Fund, $316,171,715. Fund 38, non-refundable debt service.
Non-referendum.
I'm sorry, non-referendum debt service, $3,667,783. Fund 39, referendum approved debt service, $18,600,022 or $622,856. Fund 41, capital expansion fund, 500,000. Fund 80, 5 million, my bad. Fund 80, community service fund, 13,440,741. Total tax levy, $356,903,95
Second, Maya.
Second, Board Member Pearson. Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Here we're gonna move to the consent agenda. Move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the October 25th, 2021 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or hers or their affirmative vote on each of the motions, consolidated hereby, subject to any express observations that have been made by any member of the school board. Second. Second, Gomez Schmidt. Any discussion? Board Member Carusi.
I need to separate 10.19. And I also want to confirm that 10.16 has indeed been pulled. And I want to make a request that we do receive some details about that pulled motion, including all of the bid information that was specified by our speakers tonight.
So my understanding is that that motion has been pulled. Barb, if we vote on the motion I just made, is that gonna include 10.61? So do we need to pull it right now?
It will not be included because it has been pulled by the administration, so that means it's like really not even there.
All right.
So all the consent will include everything but that.
So the motion I just read does not include that, and I agree completely, Board Member Carusi, that it would be great to have follow-up information. I really appreciate the folks who came and spoke to us.
I do need to pull 10.19.
Oh, and I'm like, and we're pulling 1019. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Morelli.
Thank you. I would like to pull 10.8, please.
All right, so we have pulled 10.8 and 10.19, and then we have confirmed that 10.1 was previously pulled.
Sorry, I know this is semantics. You are separating 10.19 and 10.8.
Okay.
And 10.16 has been pulled.
We have separated 10.19 and 10.8, and 10.16 has been pulled.
Thank you.
Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. All right, so then we are gonna speak to on the motion that was pulled by 10.9.
10.8.
Y'all.
10.8.
Yes, I'm gonna read the motion. I move that the Board of Education agree to enter into a contract for consulting using virtual learning platform, technology support, and facilitator training for the Justified Anger Black History for a New Day course for up to 700 staff members. 12,600 hours of professional development for both fall and winter cohorts in the amount of 230,000 with funding from the 2021-2022 ESSER's Big Idea Funds. Second.
A second.
Sorry, I don't actually know where the second came from on that one.
Ananda.
Second, Board Member Morelli, any discussion? Board Member Morelli?
Yeah, thank you so much, President Mojo. I just wanted to speak to this large investment, not only to elevate the importance of Black history, but also to have factual history and also fill in any gaps that our educators may have in regards to the specifics of racialization, historical fact and racialization of this country. I also wanted to elevate that given our past conversation on elementary school suspension and how disappointed I was with that conversation, that I would like to invite our board members and senior staff and anyone that is not going to benefit from this investment to also engage in this level of professional learnings. I think that this investment needs to be congruent to the level of our discussion and to the specifics around being an anti-racist district. Being an anti-racist district is not just around lip service and a statement. It's also reflected in the way that we have conversations, the way we vote, what questions we ask, what we elevate, and then what this item is specifically saying is also on how our financial investment is aligned to. I think that is a beginning to how we're going to continue to support our educators and support our families and students in regards to being an anti-racist district. I wanted to thank everyone that has submitted the big ideas and participated in that grant process. I wanted to thank the team, MMSD staff that have worked diligently to look at all the proposals that were submitted and to make sure that this proposal in particular is now being brought to this board and for a vote. So thank you so much to the entire MMSD staff that worked on the Big Ideas grant. And thank you so much, President Mojo, for providing me an opportunity to speak on this item.
Thank you, Board Member Morelli. Board Member Vandermeulen.
This is a question for administration. Is there a possibility we could find publishers outside of the state of Texas? Because McGraw-Hill is out of Texas, and every time we get books from there, 10 to 1, either Black history and disability history is either omitted or it's wrong. Is there a possibility that we can find a different one?
So I think that's a very valid question, but I'm not
Not
exactly sure. Yes, and I don't think it is connected to this motion because this motion is specific to justified anger, and that curriculum is actually provided through a local non-for-profit.
You're right.
Okay. But thank you for raising that, Nikki. for tonight, we've got to table it.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and this
Board Member Castro?
curriculum development, Justified Anger, I just want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Christy Clark Pujera at the university, who works really hard to produce accurate history that this professional development utilizes, and a great asset to our community. But yeah, thank you.
Board Member Pearson.
Just real quick, not just only accurate history, but history that most people don't know.
All right, now.
And I think that that is a very important point. And it goes in depth into points that a lot of people don't even think about. So I am in 100% agreement of the work that she's been doing in the work of Justified Anger. And there have been hundreds of people have gone through that training. So I'm excited.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. I do want to recognize the work that MTI has done to pair our educators with this opportunity, as well as, second, the thanks that comes from Board Member Castro, specific to the team that allows for this professional development to be possible within our community. So thank you all for this robust and engaged conversation about this specific item. Before we move on, Dr. Jenkins, it looks like you want to chime in.
Yes, and you almost took the words out of my mouth there, Chair Muldrow, because I wanted to thank Carrie, who's with us here tonight, and Jorge, and just the Big Ideas team. When we read over this, it was just like so powerful. I've been hearing so much about Justified Anger in the community. And then to know that as a board, when we talk about being anti-racist, we talk about the work and investing, that we're actually taking this on. But there, Carrie, I want to thank you, Jorge, and we've had conversations with MTI about this. We said we're going to go on this journey together. I am so proud right now of this particular moment in this discussion. I thank the board in advance for supporting this initiative.
Thank you so much for highlighting the tremendous leadership from a variety of people working with this district in a variety of ways that it took for us to both have this conversation and reach this point, and also provide this professional development to our staff. Thank you all, Jorge and folks, for jumping on the screen. And I guess before we vote, did you all want to chime in?
Carrie, I'll defer to you. I just wanted to thank everybody.
I could if I, thanks, Jorge. I was going to thank Jorge again also, but I think the only thing that I would like to say is the immense pride with which I feel of being in the position to affirm and lift this amazing community partnership that we have with Nehemiah. That actually, I just want to elevate that the connection between the district and Nehemiah and MTI really was started by our own educators, in educators actively working towards anti-racism. So I just want to lift that activism of our educators who asked us to begin to meet with Nehemiah as a union and find ways to bring this into our system and find ways for every educator to have access to this meaningful professional development. And just the purposeful use of the ESSER funds to really live our principle of being an anti-racist organization. So this really is the best of the union and the district lifting the work of a community partner with the brilliance and talent that exists among us. So I invite all of the board members, there is a winter cohort. I would gladly create a place in the grant. You are part of the district, and it is for all staff members in the district currently. So I invite you all to participate. I'll send you an invitation.
Thank you, Carrie and Jorge. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. I think we are ready to vote on this item. So Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. All right, and then we are going to 1019. All right, I move that the Board of Education accept a donation
in the amount of $10,000 from American Family Insurance to support Lakeview Elementary School's improvement plan goals and community school priority areas.
Okay.
Thank you, Board Member Gomes Schmidt. Any discussion? Board
I
Member
need to-
Peruzzi.
I need to recuse myself from this vote because I have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, well, I want to thank American Family Insurance before we vote. And Nama, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. All right, folks, and I think that gets us through this meeting, although I'm like, we have other business.
Other reports of the board, 13.1.
I'm sorry.
SCR, City of Madison Education.
Other reports from the board, 13.1, City of Madison Committee, Board Member Morelli or Board Member Castro.
Yeah, thank you so much, President Modrow. We had a very important discussion around the final report on an inclusion task force, which I would love if Board Member Castro can elevate a few of the highlights of that final report that includes some specific recommendations. We also continue to work with the school district, and Dr. McGregory is our liaison for the committee in regards to alignment and also elevating the priorities of the committee, which is youth employment, housing, mental health, the digital gap, and transportation. We're going to be following up on the items of the Big Idea grant and continue to identify gaps in funding. We have been really grateful for the support that the county has done in regards to the investment and the work of many county supervisors in regards to investment on youth employment. And with that, I'd love to pass to Board Member Castro.
Thank you so much. A lot of the discussion and recommendations from the final report of the digital inclusion ad hoc committee include recommendations to improve the physical infrastructure of our broadband infrastructure here in Madison. We simply have some dead zones, so to speak, with regard to internet connectivity, where internet simply isn't accessible or speeds are very much delayed. And we also have to have some capital investment in terms of getting devices to people. But maybe one of the most important things was developing a internet ombudsman, someone to work with communities to help them just navigate the internet to find resources that they need with regard to things like relevant in their life, like financial assistance, rental assistance, job searching, things of that nature. And so, you know, we're hopeful. We have a few alder folks introducing an amendment in the city budget to develop a internet ombudsman position to help folks navigate the internet. You know, the district continues to put heavy resources in terms of internet connectivity. We still have about 2,000 hotspots out to families. I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the upcoming budget too. So that's that on internet and broadband justice.
Thank you.
Nama, can you update us on Student Senate?
Yeah, of course. So our last meeting, we onboarded the 8th grade nominees and we introduced them to Student Senate. So that was really exciting to just see young faces in Student Senate and kind of getting them introduced. And we also got, we introduced them to committees, and we're going to split into our committee groups at our next meeting. So we're excited to start our work and get the year started on our feet.
Nama, I think you and Gordon are kind of the dream team, and we are so proud of the work that you're doing to make sure that younger students have the opportunity to participate in Student Senate. You all are doing such a beautiful job this year, so thank you for all your work and your leadership. Madison School Community Recreation MSCR Advisory Committee, Board Member Vandermeulen.
We had our first in-person meeting since the pandemic. because people couldn't really have the Wi-Fi connectivity. We discussed renewed the minutes from August. We updated our chair. Our new chair is Erica Janet. And we are now focusing on member recruitment by drafting letters, targeting outreach and connections with MMSD, and sending emails to MSCR participants, as well as on Facebook. We also went over the 2021 MSCR summer program overview. I gave a brief report on the status of the Board of Education, and then I was the liaison for this upcoming year. And the Warner Park Advisory Committee has nominated Cheryl Dietrich to lead that committee, and then in January is our next meeting.
Thank you so much, Board Member Vandermeulen. All right. Dr. Marvin Pryor will provide an oral report on the progress of the ad hoc committee's work to date with respect to the Citizens Renaming Committee regarding proposals to rename Memorial High School. Thank you so much, Dr. Pryor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I am delighted to come forth to provide you with an update as to where we are in this process. As you will all recall, on March 22nd, 2021, the superintendent and the Board of Education received a formal proposal from a former Memorial High School student, Maya Berry, to rename the school after Velvelia Phillips, excuse me. As a result, an ad hoc Citizens Renaming Committee was appointed by the Board of Education, and on April 26, 2021, the board gave the charge for the committee to move forward following Board Policy 6700 and move the proposal through the renaming process. During the period of March the 23rd through April the 23rd, 2021, proposals were sought through the district's webpage, as well as a special email address that was set up for James Madison Memorial Renaming Committee, as well as the Board of Madison email as well. So totally, we received, as of this date, 750 comments, and over 80 unedited proposals were actually submitted. Of the 80 proposals that were submitted, there was several duplicates, so that we were able to resolve those duplicates down to 26 different names. All 26 names were researched and vetted to ensure that all submissions met the requirements as outlined in Board Policy 6700. The ad hoc committee, or the renaming committee, I should say, held its first meeting on July the 7th, 2021. They made introductions, they discussed the task that was given and ways of working. The committee reviewed all 26 names and the rubric that was to be used to prioritize those names or rank those names or the proposals that were submitted. The group decided at that point to work independently in ranking the 26 names, and that they would come back and convene a meeting and have a robust conversation to support their rankings. Since the initial meeting, they have reduced that list down to 26 names. That took place over the course of 5 additional meetings. And so we went from 26 names to 4 names. The next meeting, which will be held on October the 27th at 5 p.m., the committee will come together, and their sole purpose and their goal is to reduce the 4 names down to 1 sole name to present to the board. According to Board Policy 6700, if they're unable to reduce that list to 1 name, they will submit all 4 names for the board to consider. I would also like to personally thank every board member that's, not board member, excuse me, every committee member that took part in this process. I have to commend them on their commitment and their transparency. They held each other accountable, and they made certain that they followed the board policy to the T. Special thank you to the committee chair, Mr. Julian Walters, and I think the entire committee would say he did an outstanding job keeping everybody honest and keeping this process moving forward. Again, it is their goal to present to the board during our regular November meeting the sole name for consideration. I would also remind our public that that meeting will be held in person at James Madison Memorial High School, and this will be a hybrid meeting. Some will attend virtually and some will attend in person. This will provide an opportunity for the Memorial High School community to provide final commentary on the process or the final naming. And so again, I want to thank you, and we look forward to coming back before you next month to reveal the sole name, hopefully, and if not, the final 4 names that the board will make a decision on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those updates, Dr. Pryor.
You're welcome.
I move that the Board of Education allow the West Pool expansion to move forward in light of West Fundraising Committee having $1.29 million cash in hand, a signed donor agreement for up to an additional $500,000 minus any additional funds that West receives for the pool expansion between now and March 1st, 2022. And a signed agreement from the Madison Public Schools Foundation that they will financially back the donation of up to $500,000 if for some reason it is not received from the donor. Second. Second, Chris Carusi, any discussion? I want to acknowledge that Weiss High School's principal has joined us. Karen, would you like to speak to this motion?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I had not thought to speak, but I will tell you that our journey when you approved our work in February and in March to go forward, it was an extraordinarily ambitious process, and we've learned so much in the meantime. The pool expansion opportunity for the West community and the greater Madison community to increase our instructional, competitive, and recreational offerings aquatically will be awesome. And we're really, really excited about this opportunity. Thank you.
I am incredibly excited for the West High School community and our entire community for this opportunity. So thank you so much for joining us and speaking to what this means for our young people. Linda, did you want to chime in as well?
Nothing further to add. And again, just thank you for your support. I know I had a lot of communication with all of you over Labor Day weekend when this gift came together. Just the perfect storm of wonderful things. And thanks to the generosity of the family, here we are tonight. Hopefully you're accepting the gift. So thank you.
I want to thank the families who contributed and made this gift possible before we move forward and bring the board to a vote. Is there any further discussion? All right, Nama, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Nikki.
Sorry about that.
No worries. All right. West High School pool naming. I move that the Board of Education accept the donation to renovate the West High School pool and to name it the, y'all, I feel bad.
Ragettes.
Thank you. The Ragettes family pool in consideration of a donation of $1 million with an additional gift of up to $500,000 available from the Ragettes family to support enhancements to the West High School pool above and beyond the November 2020 base scope facility referendum in alignment with Board of Education Policy 6701. Second. Gomes-Schmidt. Any discussion? Member Carusi.
I just want to thank the Riggets family again for this gift and point out that even though the pool will be located at West, this will benefit children across the district. It's the only diving well we will have in MMSD. Students from around the district will be able to take swimming lessons in a really nice pool now and not in a cold and kind of scary pool. The benefits of this gift will reach far beyond the walls of West High School, and we're really grateful for that.
Thank you so much for speaking to that, Board Member Carusi. Any further discussion? How about your advisory vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we will adjourn this meeting and I am gonna give us until 8:11 to start the next meeting. So if folks can log off, we'll log back on right around 8:11, 8:12.
Thank you so much.
Holly,
Yes.
is the future though